Hello everyone, my name is Adzekunskas. My research project presentation is on the emergent issue of marijuana use in the workplace. This presentation is a requirement for the course HRT6555, Emergent Issues in Training and Development, taught by Dr. Sanchez, spring semester 2016 for Amberton University. This presentation will consist of an introduction, an explanation of emerging issues, a brief history of federal drug laws, current state marijuana laws, the challenge for employers and managers, evidence of a literature review, my position and recommendations, and finally a conclusion. Marijuana legalization, a federal or state decision. Author G.M. Falisco stated in 2015 that on June 15th, the Colorado Supreme Court was the ultimate buzzkill. The state of Colorado passed the legalization of medical marijuana use in the year 2000. Colorado also voted to pass a referendum in the year 2012 to legalize recreational marijuana use in the state. Coates versus Dish Network. This was the case of a quadriplegic who was state licensed to use medical marijuana in Colorado against his employer. In this case, the court held the state's lawful activity statute. This statute normally prohibits employers from firing employees for engaging in lawful activities off the job, but it only applies to activities lawful under state and federal law. Because marijuana is still currently illegal under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, its use isn't lawful even in marijuana-approved states such as Colorado. This statute, the way it is currently stated, can remain a valid basis for termination even if the state has approved legalization of marijuana use. Brandon Coates has been a quadriplegic since he was a teenager. He was hired by Dish Network in the year 2007 and ranked among the top 5% of Dish Network's telephone customer service representatives. In 2009, after the painkiller Coates had been using since he was 16 lost its effectiveness, his doctor prescribed medical marijuana in the state of Colorado. Brandon Coates got a medical marijuana license and began consuming marijuana at home off of work hours. When Dish Network conducted a random drug test in May of 2010, Brandon informed the tester that he would fail the test but had a medical marijuana license. Of course, Brandon did fail the test, and Dish Network terminated him in the year of 2010 for violating the company's drug policy. Brandon Coates decided to sue for wrongful termination, claiming Colorado's lawful activity statute prohibited Dish Network from firing him for engaging in illegal, off-the-clock activity. The company countered that the state's medical marijuana law didn't make medical marijuana use legal under federal law. Dish Network also argued that because marijuana was still considered a Schedule I drug under federal law, Coates' use didn't meet the statutory definition of lawful. The trial court agreed with Dish Network on both arguments. An appellate court upheld the agreement only because federal law made marijuana use still illegal. The Colorado Supreme Court also affirmed solely on the basis that federal law still considered marijuana illegal. So, Brandon Coates was licensed to legally take medical marijuana, did it off of work hours, was fired from his employer in a state that voted to legalize medical marijuana, and never got his job back. The issue of this presentation is marijuana legalization has changed over the past 4 decades, along with America's opinions supporting the drug use. Federal laws have remained the same on marijuana legalization, as state governments have gradually approved the legal use of marijuana for medical and recreational use. The problem lies where the state and federal laws contradict each other. There is now a communication breakdown with companies. Management is unclear how to uphold the state laws while continuing to follow the zero-tolerance federal drug laws. There is a conflict going on between state and federal governments regarding marijuana use. There are federal laws that require employers to test and maintain a no drug-free work zone. what are employers to do with legalization of marijuana, safety in the workplace, federal laws, employment laws, and all the different rules associated with the different states they work in. Companies have no clear direction to turn for answers. With state and federal laws unclear, companies fear being sued for employment discrimination and also fear violating disability laws. Leaving the decision to legalize the use of medical and recreational marijuana at the state level is going to cause problems for employers with zero tolerance policies for drug-free workplace rules required by the U.S. federal government. Employers are now faced with employment law issues at the state level, with safety law issues at the federal level. Employers need to be educated to protect themselves from costly lawsuits. Schedule I drugs. Author Newport in 2012 stated, "Marijuana is still classified as a Schedule I drug under federal law. Schedule I drugs are defined by the Drug Enforcement Administration, also known as the DEA, as drugs with no currently accepted medical use and a high potential for abuse. Marijuana is still considered illegal under the Federal Controlled Substance Act." Author Falisco also stated in 2015, "Marijuana is classified along with heroin, LSD, and ecstasy under federal law, making it illegal for any purpose. This is where the conflict started between state and federal drug laws." Marijuana laws in the United States. A brief history. The author Musto stated in 2002, "Marijuana legalization has been a great debate over the years in our country and will continue to be this in the foreseen future. In the 1970s, under President Richard Nixon, the Comprehensive Drug Abuse and Control Act was created to control drugs in the United States of America under one single system. Under this system, marijuana was placed as a Schedule I drug with no accepted medical use. President Nixon declared war on drugs in the 1970s. Nixon stated at a press conference, "America's public enemy number one in the United States is drug abuse. In order to fight and defeat this enemy, it is necessary to wage a new, all-out offensive." In 1973, the Drug Enforcement Agency, the DEA, was created to have one unified agency oversee drug issues in the United States. Author Falisco in 2015 stated, "In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan and his administration took a firmer stance against the war on drugs. In 1986, President Reagan issued an order creating a federal drug-free workplace. In 1988, the Drug-Free Workplace Act required employers to have a zero-tolerance, drug-free work environment. While in office, President Reagan signed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, creating a mandatory sentence for any drug-related crimes and a life sentence for any 3-time repeat drug crime offenders." Author Dyer in the year 2013 stated, "In the 1990s, President Bush signed a new anti-drug law that provided funding to expand anti-drug programs. President Bush continued the war on drugs by creating the Office of National Drug Control Policy. President Bush, while in office, required the states to do a large amount of the fighting on the war on drugs. The federal government had limited police power at the state level. Under President Bush, a bill was passed that forced the state governments to revoke government permits and state driver's license of those who were convicted of drug crimes. If the states did not enact this federal bill, the state would see a significant reduction in federal aid as a consequence." Author Thomas in the year 2006 stated, "In the 2000s, under President Bill Clinton and George W. Bush, more states started legalizing the use of medical marijuana. California was the first state to legalize medical marijuana in 1996. Many states started to follow, but each state created their own set of guidelines to go with the approved legislation. Under both presidents, the federal drug policies didn't change. Each president continued to follow the drug policies that were created prior to them being elected into office. Marijuana continued to be a Schedule I drug under federal law, making it illegal for any purpose. This is where the conflict started between the state and federal laws. The majority of American people agree that marijuana should be legal today. Public opinion has come a long way since 1970. Marijuana laws in the United States today. Arthur Paulson stated in 2012 that marijuana under President Barack Obama is now legal to use in over 23 of the 50 states that make up the United States of America. 19 states have approved the use of medical marijuana, but no one state has the exact same laws. 4 states, which include Colorado, Alaska, Oregon, and Washington, have gone on to add the legalization of recreational marijuana use. Several states have passed laws to help protect registered marijuana users from being discriminated against in employment. Others have not. Federal laws are still in effect to create a drug-free zone in the workplace. In the near future, another 7 states will be voting to legalize marijuana in 2016 elections. With more legalization of marijuana at the state level, the federal government has got to get on board to help regulate the laws for companies that work in these states. What employers are facing in states that currently have legalized marijuana? Again, marijuana in the year 2016 is now legal for use in 23 states, including Washington, D.C. 19 states have approved the use of medical marijuana only. 4 states have gone on to add the legalization of recreational use of marijuana. These states are Alaska, Colorado, Oregon, and Washington. 7 more states are voting to legalize marijuana in the 2016 elections. Should marijuana be legalized? The author Monte in 2015 stated, "The next election in November 2016, there will be more states with proposition to legalize marijuana on the ballot. Marijuana has become so much more today than an illegal drug that is the start of a downward spiral of drug abuse as the federal law still sees it. The change in support legalizing marijuana at each state level is taking a much greater stance than the opposing end of the spectrum, where the federal law still sits. There needs to be a compromise where the federal and state laws can come to an agreement on how to manage legal marijuana use. Marijuana use is here to stay." Marijuana statistics. Today, 51% of Americans think marijuana should be legal in the United States. 86% of all Americans today support medical marijuana use. 44% of Americans today are still against the legalization of marijuana use in the United States. Managers need to be trained on substance use policies and procedures, drug testing policies, and current marijuana laws. What a drug-free workplace policy should contain. The reason for the policy, what the policy is designed to do, how the policy was developed, the employee's expected behavior, a specific list of substances that are prohibited, a specific list of what legal drugs are allowed while on the job with medical authorization. The policy should clearly state substance abuse testing process and procedures for the company. It should clearly state actions the company will take towards an employee who violated the policy. And it should clearly state procedures the company will use to determine if an employee has violated the policy. What employers are facing with current federal laws that make marijuana illegal? Federal laws are still in effect that President Ronald Reagan issued in 1986 that created a federal drug-free workplace with a zero-tolerance policy. Marijuana is still classified as a Schedule I drug under federal law and is considered to have no accepted medical use by the Drug Enforcement Administration. Marijuana is still considered illegal under the Federal Controlled Substance Act. What a workplace drug testing policy should contain. It needs to promote workplace priorities such as safety, good health, and productivity. It needs to offer educational opportunities about substance abuse and drug use to employees. It needs to be a written and clearly stated document available for every employee to read and understand. It needs to state who is subject to drug testing. It needs to state how drug testing will be administered. It needs to state what are the consequences of a positive drug test. And it needs to state how positive drug test results are confirmed. What managers need to do. Do review your drug-free workplace policy with the company legal counsel at least annually. Do apply your drug testing policies fairly and consistently. Do consider the health and safety of all of your workers in the application of your drug screening policy. Do continue to comply with federal drug regulations. Do make sure all employees understand the drug policies and sign an acknowledgement form for their employee file. Do make sure your company policies are consistent with the state anti-discrimination laws. What managers shouldn't do. Employers are getting sued for not accommodating their employees' use of legal medical marijuana. HR managers need to prevent the company from becoming a target for an employee lawsuit. Make sure all managers are trained to answer marijuana questions correctly and refer the employee to Human Resource Management for further discussion on the subject. Don't stop enforcing your drug policy solely because of state marijuana laws. Don't terminate or disqualify someone without careful consideration and adherence to policies, particularly in light of medicinal or legal recreational use. Don't let managers speak without being trained regarding confidentiality of all employee information, including drug test results, medical conditions, and requests for accommodations. Marijuana in the workplace. American workers are increasingly testing positive for drugs. Of the 8.5 million analyses of urine drug tests in the United States, marijuana continues to be the most commonly detected illicit drug. A positive drug test allows an employer to discipline or terminate a worker for violating the drug-free workplace policy under current federal law. A bipartisan bill to make medical marijuana legal at the federal level has been introduced to the Senate. No laws require employers to permit employees to be under the influence of marijuana while on the job. Employee side of marijuana laws. Many workers assume if they are following state laws where marijuana is legal, employers must butt out. Employees are just as lost and as confused on what they can and can't do off the clock. Many employees post social media statuses and online pictures showing them using marijuana outside of the workplace and think they can't be terminated. What does the future hold for marijuana in the workplace? The marijuana and drug testing laws will continue to evolve. Marijuana will be regulated more like alcohol, with the views of public opinion changing. The federal government will vote to remove marijuana as a Schedule I drug. Literature review. The article this research student was reviewing was titled Cross-Cultural Competency Tools. This article is current for our discussion topic on training and development methods. The article was published in early 2014. The author of this article is Jenny Placer-10. She is qualified to write on this subject. Jenny is a coach, consultant, and trainer who uses all three of the tools mentioned in this article in her practice. The purpose of this article is to inform and educate the reader that has knowledge in the field of training and development. This article is scholarly written by an expert in the field. The article shows a list of references the author used to write this article for this journal. This article also provides 3 illustrations and 2 diagrams along with the article. This article was also peer-reviewed. The author discusses training methods that need to be incorporated into training and development to help employees recognize the company culture. Culture in an organization has an impact on people's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. The culture also has an impact on leadership styles and the organization's context as a whole. The author compares and contrasts personal development awareness building tools that can be used in training and development programs. According to an international study from the British Council, employers now place a high level of importance upon cultural skills. Skills such as demonstrating respect for others, building trust, and working effectively in diverse teams were more important than the formal qualifications. Training and development programs need to create awareness and incorporate skills to work within the culture of organizations. When dealing with drug policies and issues in the workplace, it is important to make sure the company culture is an open and honest two-way street. Managers and employees need to communicate. Communication is the key to work through any changes. A company culture that shows mutual respect and understanding will be ahead of the rest of the competition. The company that struggles to understand the changing laws on legalizing marijuana in the workplace will be better off with communication. My recommendations. Marijuana needs to be removed from the federal laws, making it a Schedule I drug with no medical use so employers have a chance. Both the state and federal governments need to find a way to meet in the middle so employers and human resource managers can work to understand the marijuana legalization laws in each state. Managers need to conduct reviews with legal staff of drug-free workplace policies and drug testing programs. Employers must take steps to protect the company, the employees, and the workplace from legal challenges regarding legalized drug use in the workplace. References. Legalized marijuana conclusion. The next election in November 2016, there will be more states with the proposition to legalize marijuana on the ballot. Marijuana has become so much more today than a legal drug that is the start of a downward spiral of drug abuse as the federal law still sees it. The changing support legalizing marijuana at each state level is taking a much